Hello guys, this is Just John. As some of you might know, I've been building a brewery lately, and I've been assembling a lot of my own parts. One of the things I assembled was this thermal controller here, and it kind of got a lot of feedback on Reddit. People wanted to know how I built it, if I could do a video on building it. I've actually got two controllers I need to build. One is for the fermentation chamber, which I had to get that done early on, and then the other one is going to be for my eventual keezer, which is just a little small deep freeze that's going to have just more good or better temperature control, where you can set it above freezing, you know, something like 40-45 degrees. Anyhow, so what we have here is all the parts you're going to need to get the project done. We'll start off with the power cord. You can make your own power cord. You could certainly go to your local appliance recycling center if you have one in your city, and just cut one off an appliance. The only place we have to recycle appliances here is privately owned, so I can't just go in there and hack off a cord. So I bought two little extension cords like this. Those guys were rated at 13 amps. This guy here is just an 8" by 8" by 4" project box. It's not really a project box, it's more of like the sort of thing that I would mount on the side of my house to wire up my telephone system or something like that. I got this up at Menards for $11. It's really heavy built, it's got a nice seal, it feels good in your hand. I'm pretty fond of this. I tried to build it out of project boxes from Radio Shack, but they weren't quite deep enough. Okay, this guy here is an STC-1000. Let's see if we can get it in the focus. STC-1000. And what it does is you set a temperature in there, and it will try and hold the temperature by turning on and off a heating alert and a cooling alert. So what this comes with is this little temperature probe. As you can see it over here on this one. It's that guy right there. You put this probe down in your freezer on the side of your fermentator, or just in the freezer, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to hold the temperature of. So there's that. So anyhow, you set the temperature in this, and there's some places on the back you can't really see on this yet that you screw in wires. You screw in basically the wires that'll power one outlet and the other outlet, and then also this guy. And what happens is when the temperature gets cold enough, it'll turn on this outlet to heat it up, and when it gets hot enough, it'll turn on this outlet to chill it back down. So that's what we're going to build today. Oh, yeah, obviously you knew that. Anyhow, so that's the STC-1000. It's a very simple package to work with. I kind of recommend it. You're going to need some pigtails. Pigtails, I don't know if it's a common term. It's what I call little 6" pieces of wire that I'm going to, you know, just be wiring up a box like this with. For my purposes, I needed 2 black, 2 white, 1 green, and 3 red. The red and the black are going to be power leads. Green is going to be earth ground. White's going to be standard ground. Good wire strippers. Just a little note point on this. Everyone's got the really cheap wire strippers. Go out and spend an extra $2. Get the good ones. They'll last you your whole life. You'll feel like you're using a good piece of equipment. A couple screwdrivers. You will need a small Phillips, and you will need a normal Phillips. I think that's the only kind of screws in it. So I got this with some equipment years back. It's just a simple outlet tester. I tell you what, it's only like $4 at Lowe's, and it seems silly, but a lot of times I forget what side the hot goes on. You know, sometimes I'll swap the hot and the cold, just because I don't know, brain farts, I guess, and it's just nice to have something to know you wired it up right. Although, you know, it's kind of silly, but I just feel better with it. For messing with the box, you know, to put the holes in it, I've got just a normal old metal rasp and a coping saw. Then you're gonna need a couple wire nuts too, and a standard outlet. Well, I guess this isn't really quite standard. Standard one's got that little oval in here, and I got the kind of the rectangle face, just because I felt like it'd be easier to cut the hole in the project box in that rectangle shape. I think that's all the parts I'm going to need, so we'll get right into this. So the first thing I did, and I don't know if you can see it on there, but I drew out the size of this device here, and I'm going to cut that guy out. Now the way I do that is I'm just going to drill a hole in one of the corners, and then I'm going to take my coping saw and I'm going to cut around it, and I'm going to make what's called a rough cut, and then we'll go from there, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay. Okay, so on my coping saw, the handle screws like this, and when it gets all the way screwed out, close to it, you can release the blade. So what you do is you feed that blade through one of the holes wherever you want to start on your project, and that goes in there just like so. And this goes in there just like so. Crank it back down, and now it's a lot easier to cut that out. Okay, so I've got my rough hole cut out from my STC-1000. First thing I need to do is make sure it fits. Because it's a rough cut hole, I intentionally cut it just a little bit small. And also, I mean, there's always going to be some spot that needs to be touched up. So I'm going to move the back cover, throw those parts in my spare part bin. Okay, so now on this thing, these little orange things, what they are, they're like pressure fittings that you slide forward to clamp the device to the front. Now they slide all the way off the back. So I'm going to remove those and see how it fits. Okay, I'm not quite wide enough, and I'm not quite tall enough. So, handy file. Okay, so I've been filing away and it seems to be a nice snug fit. So if I take this, it's nice and snug. So now the STC-1000 is trimmed up for the front of the box. I'm going to continue on to the outlet next. Now on the last one, I feel like I put the outlet too low. Because see, this down here wound up to where I had to cut off part of this to fit it. So on this one I'm going to hold it up just a little bit higher. I suspect I'll probably have it about like that. Anyhow, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to center it good. I'm going to measure it, and then I'm just going to draw a line around the outside with my pencil. And I'm going to drill it out in just the same manner as I did the top and fit it. And I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, so I fitted the plug-in hole now. And a little known fact about these type of plug-ins. This type of screw, if you unscrew it, screws threads in perfectly fine to that hole. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill a couple holes in the case there and there for these holes to be screwed back into here. So that's fairly easy to do. First thing you gotta do is get these screws out of here. Okay. So now I'm going to take this, fit it back in the hole, and I'm just going to take my pencil, and I'm just going to draw on those holes. And it'll make a nice, neat little spot for me to drill out. So I'm going to go ahead and drill that out. Now I'm going to use an 1/8 of an inch screw, a hole for these holes that I'm going to drill. I think you could probably go one size larger, but I used an 1/8 of an inch last night. It was nice and snug and it worked. I do think though it probably is the next size up if you wanted to do it proper. I'll be right back once I get these connected and hooked up in here, and then we'll get into wiring, the fun part. See you in a bit. Okay, so I've got this in here, screwed down tight. And I know I said that I was going to come back with both of them installed, but I thought it might be helpful to see the STS or the STC and how it actually clips in there. So, got this. Make sure your top side up. Fits in there nice and snugly. Push it all the way down. Then take your 2 orange clips, and what they'll do is they'll kind of come in like that. And you want to get nice and snug. The snugger you get it, the better, obviously. So I'm going to do it with the other side. Okay, so now this is there. We want to do one final test fit. Make sure it fits in the enclosure. Looks like we're okay. And we're going to start wiring it up. Now, so I've got all these pigtails. If you look at the top of this, it gives you a brief little wiring diagram. Basically, these two here and these two here are switches. The one on the left is for heating, the one on the right is for cooling. Then you have these two for the sensor, the temperature sensor, and then these two power the unit. So what we're going to do is we're going to run from this guy right here to here, and then from this guy right here to here. The other side of these is going to be fed into the power. Basically, I'm just going to splice the incoming power to put in there. I'm going to do a 3-way splice, you know, one in there, one over here in the front where it's going to power the unit. And that's for the hot side. Now for the cold side, I'm going to use this side. Now there's going to be a little bit of a difference. So I don't know if you can see it very well, but down in here there's a little tab. And what that does is it connects this screw to this screw. So we're going to have to remove that tab on the hot side because we're going to have two different hots coming in. On the cold side though, we can have a common cold, so I'm going to leave it intact over there. I'm going to go grab my pliers and do that right now. Okay, so I'm going to try and remove that little tab. You just kind of grab it and give it a little jiggle like that, and it'll eventually pop right off there. There we go. Came right off. Now we have two separate hots, one common ground. So this piece here is ready to start having wires attached to it. Next thing I'm going to do is start stripping my wires. So on the STC-1000, these little terminals where you plug the wires into are not very deep. You only need about 1/4 inch or so. So when I strip those, that's about all I'm going to need right there. So I'm going to go through, strip the wires, have those ready to go, and when I come back we'll be ready for wiring it up. Okay, so all my wires are here and they're stripped, and all stripped in the same manner. The one side, so we got like a little 1/4 inch stripping. The other side's about 5/8. And the reason for that is the other side's either going to go through a twist lock like this, or it's going to be screwed into one of the sides of here. So takes a total of 6 wires that we're going to plug into the STC. The black ones are going to be for the hot and the cold. The red is going to be for distribution of power, and the white is going to be one negative that's going to be powering the unit. So here we are with this, and we'll just get her going. First thing, you're going to need a small straight blade screwdriver, which I've got right here, and make sure and read the wiring diagram at the top. I previously read it, so I am aware that I can just pretty much get going. Sometimes you gotta unscrew them a bit. Make sure I'm still in frame. But just like that, stick the wire in, screw in a bit, get it snug. So I'm going to move on all the way across the board. Oh, that one needs to be unscrewed just a little bit. So does its neighbor. There we go. Okay, so these are these red ones are 3 power ends. White is negative. Take a black one, which I'm just using for color coding, so it's a little bit easier to see on video how it's all wired. It's really the same as a red because it's still a positive. Just has a switch in the middle of it is all. Alright, make sure individually that they are still snug, and we can start wiring up the outlet. I'm going to take these and kind of move them a little bit out of the way, and we're only going to work with our black ones right now. That one right there feels a little bit loose, just a little snug. Okay, so if you look at the top, remember the left, whoops, it's not in frame. The left one is for heating, the right one is for cooling. So we want the heating to be on the top, not the bottom. So this one is going to go into here, and this one is going to go into here. And what I like to do, take my little pliers, put a little twist in the end of the wire, something about like that. Come down in here, and I hope this is showing up good on camera. And you just kind of negotiate it on there like that. And that's definitely not going to show up good on the camera. There you go. And then take a little screwdriver. And I like to clean up, push those wires in there so I don't have any, for lack of better words, wild wires. And snug it up. Okay, now we're going to rinse and repeat for the other one. There we go. Alright. Oh, and by the way, these wires I'm using, this pigtail is a 12 gauge stranded. I think I can get away with 14 gauge, but when possible I try and overbuild everything. I'm already a little bit nervous about the STC because it's only 10 amp. Alright, see, I knew it. This wire was loose. It popped out of there. It felt a little on the loose side. So we're going to fix that up a little bit. Okay, now it feels kind of sturdy again. Now, you're going to want these guys to have a pretty sharp bend as they come out of the STC. So I'm going to go ahead and bend them down and put them in a configuration that a little bit more manageable. I'm only going to use one of these two, so I'm going to zip in the other one. Alright, so take my ground, strip it, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to bump the camera there. Take one end of it and rotate it around. Now another thing, when I rotate these, I always try and rotate it in the direction that I intend to be tightening. So that, in this case, I'm going to be tightening this way. That way, as I tighten it, it's going to curl up tighter as opposed to uncurling. There we go. Now on this side I don't have to be quite so careful about if there's a little bit of a wild wire because I don't have two terminals right next to each other. So that's in there. I'm going to do the same thing for my earth contact ground, which is my green wire. Oops. Okay. Now back together. Okay. I'm going to take that, make sure I'm still in frame, and hook it down here. Alright, so that's wired up, and what we're ready to do now is to start pigtailing stuff together to hook into the main power feeds. So these two will go together, these three will go together, and this one. But what I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to put the back cover on the STC. Oh, no, because I don't have the thermal on there yet. So what I have to do is, that's got a little bit loose. What I have to do is cut a hole in my box and feed the power lines through now, because mostly this is all hooked up now. So that, maybe a little tiny screw here in there. So what I did on the last one is I just came up here, drilled a 1/4 inch hole with my cordless drill, and I just kind of went back and forth until it was wide enough to accommodate my wire. So I'm going to do that. Before that though, I'm going to go ahead and cut this extension cord to make it into something usable. So on the end here, I don't really have any use for this project, but I might on a different project because I build weird stuff all the time. So I'm going to leave about 6 inches so I can work with it in the future and cut that right off. And then this I'm going to feed through the side of the box. I'm going to be right back as soon as I got a hole in the box that's going to accommodate it. Okay, so I've drilled a hole in the side, and I fed the wires through. I gave myself about 8 inches of wire to play with. We got to split this wire in two. Now, the way this type of wire works is the hot and the cold are on the sides, and they don't have independent shielding. Now, the ground in the middle has independent shielding, and that'll make a little bit more sense once I cut into this thing and show you. So I'm just going to take a pair of pliers and kind of cut right down the middle. So there's a split. So now I can just take it and just kind of keep on pulling on it. So I got some room to work with. Now what I meant by that ground is if I do like this, I'll be able to pull out a shielded or insulated ground from the middle. And there it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and strip these. And this one I'm gonna strip pretty far. Experience tells me I'm gonna be wrapping this around my other ground quite a bit. And then I got this one, which I don't need as much on. And this one, which again I don't need as much on. Now, the thing I always run into problems with is me trying to figure out, okay, which one of these is positive and which one of them is negative. Usually the one with writing or stripes on it, which is this one, is the positive, at least in my experience. However, on this one side has writing and the other one has these little bitty ribs. You can't probably hardly see them in the video. But they're there, and on this one, the ribbed one is the positive, and the one with writing is the negative. So we're gonna go ahead and do that final wire. Now, boy, and this is probably going to be hard to see in the video, and I apologize, people. There's not much I can do. I don't have an appropriate, what are they called? Stand for holding my camera for this. Before I get into the big wires, I'm going to go ahead and wire up the thermocoupler so that I can put the cover on the STC. Okay, so now finally, the STC is fully wired up, and came with this little cover. You just throw it on there like that, and it kind of keeps the wires all in a, nice and organized sort of a look. Okay, so first things first, we're going to do the easy one, which is the ground. So you just take this wire, this green one, and the green one that came out of the middle of the container, and you kind of wrap this around here, like that. Take your wire nut, and just throw that on there. There we go. So that is done. Now, for the positives, you take these and you kind of just line them up. You take this, throw it in there with it, and again, just kind of try and get them as lined up as possible. You give it just a little bit of twist. I don't know if you can see that. And you throw a wire nut on there. Okay, so now we're going to do the same procedure with the cold side of the house. Get those lined up. Get that in there. Alright, so now in theory we have a fully functional thermal controller. So you just kind of carefully negotiate this all into the case. And got some screws around here. Throw those screws in there. Alright, we should have a completed unit. Best part, peeling off the little plastic that covers LCD panels. There we go. We should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and test this real quick. I'll grab an extension cord and I'll be right back. Alright, so I'm back with my extension cord. I'm going to plug it in, see what happens. So what you got here is a little boot initiation, and I've previously set this to 24 degrees Celsius, with the thought being that I'll be able to cup the sensor in my hand and cause it to go above 24 degrees. Right now it's reading in here that's 22.9, so that means it needs to apply heat. See how it listed there, heat? So if we wire up everything right, this guy here will light up. So I'm going to use this testing device, and the way we know this works, that everything's correct, is both yellow lights are on, or the ones on the right, and the red one is not. And there we have it. I don't know if you can see, yeah, both yellow ones are on. Now, the other thing we want to verify is that the chill port is not on. And it is not. No energizing at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to cup the thermosensor until the temperature goes over 24 degrees, which should turn these on. So here we go. I'm just holding it in my hand. Oh, you hear it click? So now it's right. Oh, now it says cool, and it's blinking because it wants to basically just wait for a little bit. One of the settings in it is that it's got a brief pause before when it will turn on the cooling side, and this is to keep from burning out the compressor in your refrigerator. It basically makes it to where, you know, it won't go back and forth between on and off, you know, 5 times in a minute. There's just a little pause there. So I'm going to wait for a second and we'll see it turn on. I'm going to leave the camera rolling, but I'm probably going to cut here. Okay, so there we go. I don't know if you saw that, but both of them lit up. Basically about a minute expired there. And that says now the cool light isn't blinking, it's solid, so it's on. So if this was hooked up to a freezer, it would start chilling the space inside of there. And the next thing we need to do is verify that the heating port is not on anymore. It's not. So now we're going to let this cool down by no longer cupping it in our hands. And as a matter of fact, I might just put it on my beer. Be the easy way. Set my beer on it, see if it can get it dropped down fairly quickly. And as it drops down, the first thing we should see is this heating side turn off once it gets down below 24 degrees, which it should get there fairly quickly. Okay, it's about to turn off the cool any second now, and it's off. So now we're going to put this up here, and in just a second, once it crosses the threshold right there, the heat's going to come on. So we're good to go. We have a thermal controller for this worked great for a I believe it used a lot in saltwater tanks. I'm going to be using this for a fermentation chamber for a home brewery. I'm not sure what else you'd use it for, but if you have a situation where you need to maintain an exact temperature in an area, this is perfect for it. The entire cost of me building this guy here was about $22 on Amazon. Plug-in was $2, so up to $24. My various wire was about $3 or $4, so you know, we'll call that $27. And then my box that I'm putting in was $11. So after tax, you're looking just over 40 bucks. It's a heck of a lot cheaper than buying one pre-made. Cheapest I could find pre-made was about 60 bucks. So anyhow, I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you next time. Goodbye.